It is 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stories we're watching this Friday, November 28th. Former President Duterte is skipping today's reading of the ICC decision on his appeal for interim release. He will instead be represented by his lawyer, attorney Nicholas Kaufman. The ICC Appeals Chamber is set to deliver the ruling today, November 28th, at 10:30 in the morning at The Hague, and that's 5:30 p.m. in the Philippines. But for security reasons, the proceedings will be uploaded, or the video of the proceedings will be uploaded 30 minutes after. Duterte faces charges of crimes against humanity over killings linked to his administration's drug war.
Dismissed Bulacan 1st District Engineer Henry Alcantara returned around 110 million pesos in cash to the government today. Justice Acting Secretary Frederick Vida said this turnover is part of his restitution. Alcantara is facing criminal charges over the irregularities in flood control projects. More than 100 police and NBI personnel searched a hotel in Pasay City today, but were unable to try to serve, but were unable to the arrest warrants for SunWest corporate executives linked to the flood control scam. 3 SunWest board members were believed to be hiding in that hotel. Authorities are now urging the executives to turn themselves in.
And President Bongbong Marcos comes out with another report on the developments in the flood control scandals investigation. One highlight, Marcos orders the DOTR and CAAP to coordinate with authorities in Malaysia and in Singapore to prevent the movement of air assets of resigned Congressman Zaldico. Take a listen.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ito po ay patuloy na aking pagre-report sa taong bayan tungkol sa mga development sa mga kaso hinggil sa mga flood control project na iskandalo. Ngayong araw, inutasan ko ang DOTR at saka yung CAAP na makipag-ugnayan sa mga kaibigan natin sa Malaysia at saka sa Singapore. Dahil ang mga pag-aari na helicopter at saka aeroplano ay mukhang doon tinatago ni Zaldico. At nakarehistro po ito sa kanyang kumpanya na tinatawag na Misbis Aviation and Development Corporation. Ngunit nagkaroon na ng freeze order ang AMLAC, kaya lahat ng galaw at disposisyon ng mga aircraft na ito ay lalong-lalo na ngayon ay ipinagbabawal. Dahil kailangan natin ipalaman sa lahat ng mga pugante, hindi pwedeng gamitin ang mga ari-arian na galing sa kaban ng bayan na tinakaw ninyo para tumakas o umiwas sa batas. You cannot steal from Filipino people and expect to hide or fly away on your private jets. You have the money to run, but you cannot outrun the Republic of the Philippines. Kaya kayo mga pugante, umuwi na kayo. Ang payo ko sa inyo, hindi na kayo turista, hinahabol na kayo ng batas. At isa pang development po, ngayong araw din kinonfirma ng DOJ na si Henry Alcantara ay nagbalik na ng 110 million sa gobyerno at sa loob ng 2 linggo ay magbabalik pa ng 200 milyon. This government intends to bring back every peso, every asset, every person responsible and return it to the Filipino people. Maraming salamat po. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat.
110 million.
What?
Wala, imagine ko lang.
Kasya kaya yung table natin?
Ito utang ko.
Probably not, no?
Tingin
Kasi
mo
mas malaki yung table nila.
Hindi kakasya yun.
No, hindi nga kasya.
Oo, tsaka
Unless you pile it higher. Kasi yung
but
table nila.
I don't know how stable this is for 110 million. I mean, can you imagine? Well, hopefully tig-1,000 kasi kung tig-20 yun.
Wala nang 20 ngayon na bill.
Meron pang 20, ano ka ba?
Well, they're starting to phase it out. Pero,
ito kasi hindi sila yung gumamit ng 20.
check.
Well, anyway, 110, well, we showed the video, I think. Did we show the video?
The photo.
You know? Can anybody else imagine 110?
You know what is it about piles of cash on the table? Ba't gusto-gusto nila yung ganon?
Because it makes everything more tangible. Kasi,
'cause
man,
it's
can you
visual.
imagine how many Filipinos can imagine 1 million?
Sabagay.
Or even half a million?
I can't even imagine 110 on a table.
Diba?
Oh, sabagay.
Kahit nga 100,000, mahirap yung may imagine ng ordinaryong tao yan. 110 million.
Ayun. Kasi,
O yan.
kasi diba,
Tig 1,000 yan.
diba it came up in the Senate Blue Ribbon hearing na there was a photo that si
Yeah.
Henry Alcantara, Bryce Hernandez taking photos nung nagde-deliver sila allegedly ng bribes. Nasa table din in 1,000 bill bundles and pinicturean nga nila. So ayun na naman tayo, nung sinoli yung pera, it's also still on the table in piles of cash. So
But you have to, no, you have
I don't know what their
hand it to them,
fascination with
did they pack it away for future use tapos nilabas ulit? O
that's
did they have to withdraw it from the bank?
Oh, that's the part that I want to know as well. Hindi kasi na-explain during the press con how acting Justice Secretary Vida got a hold of the cash. Saan siya galing? Galing ba siya sa vault nila Henry Alcantara and then they was delivered back to them? Or did they have to withdraw again? Or did they have to sell assets?
Kasi kung i-withdraw mo ulit, pwede mo na lang in-online transfer.
Hindi. Sabi mo nga, walang visual
Well,
impact.
that's it. That's my point. That's why
Walang visual
you would
impact.
want something more visual than, and then napadala ko na.
Oo.
Parang,
Deposit slip!
yeah, but people will not be able to relate to that.
But you can't hold a press con on a deposit slip.
There you
ganon.
go. There you go. You're looking at maximum impact in this case. Parang ito, binalik. Although when you put that in relation to yung magkano ginastos sila sa casino, kalahating bilyon.
Billions. Or
Hindi,
allegedly, the
in one night or in 2 nights,
Oo.
kalahating bilyon sila. 500 million na ginastos nila. So wala pa yung mga 1/3 lang yan.
1/3 lang yan.
Wala,
So
1/4.
tell me, so sige nga, when they have to turn over the real estate and that the tangible assets that they purchase, paano yun? May handover of the key.
Nasa paso. Yun. ito lupa galing sa binili kong
Hindi, doon sila sa bahay in front of the house, handing over the key para bang first time homeowner.
Or if you're looking for maximum visual impact, you tour the press around the house that was
That's
turned over,
true.
surrendered.
That's true.
Diba?
You could do that.
And
Oo.
you show this is where the money went and this is being turned over to
Back to the government.
versus ito titulo. Diba?
Kasi with the luxury cars of the Discayas, ganun din ginawa nila.
Oh.
They invited all of the media to the auction
Pwede namang susi lang.
compound. Pwede naman susi lang or pwedeng photos lang. So-and-so bought this
But kasi ito,
vehicle.
can you imagine,
But they are
110
going for
million.
maximum
Ito,
impact.
pasalog ko si 110 million.
Hindi naman, may caps ang pasalog. Oo.
And I've never transferred 110 million, so I wouldn't know.
Depende yata ba? I think it's 50,000 on InstaPay, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, isa pa, yeah. Paingay. What did they do with this in this case? Kasi can you imagine Henry Alcantara saying na, Sir, babalik ko na po. Dong.
Pakilabas sa vault.
Humakot ka ng cart. Humakot ka ng ilang kumpol ng pera diyan. Tapos dali mo doon. 'Di ba? Alika na dong. Tapos dadali mo doon. Versus boss, anong GCash mo?
Yun lang nga,
Opinaya mo.
I was a bit annoyed nung hindi sila, when they didn't take questions during the press con. At least naman lang pa-explain where the money came about, right? How the money came about.
Or did Alcantara withdraw it from a bank? And if he did,
ko alam.
did he have to justify the withdrawal again? Remember that controversy na parang ganun ba kadali maglabas ng ganyang kalaking pera sa bangko?
Evidently, pag DPWH contractor ka, that's on the list of the land bank, pwede. Kaya nga naka-withdraw ng malaki si Sally Santos, remember?
Yeah, pero
that's
ito
her
DPWH engineer, hindi contractor. So with this, his salary would amount to mga 130,000 a month.
As a district engineer,
sabi mo, inipon ko yan ng ilang henerasyon, gano'n. Doesn't count, doesn't work, di ba?
I think these questions are they're funny and interesting, pero they're also relevant to the case. It's important that we know ano yung provenance ng money na to, saan galing tong pera na to, and kung totoo nga bang for one thing, kung Henry Alcantara was holding on to all of that cash in his house, di ba?
And 110 million may seem magnificent to us, but how many percent That's how many percent of how much he earned.
Exactly. Kung restitution to, okay, this is the first part of his restitution, how big of a percentage is this? Vis-a-vis everything that he has to return to the government that he unlawfully acquired. Diba? Kung basis lang natin is yung salary niya as a regional district engineer, 130,000 a month. So yun lang yung dapat.
Thereabouts. I forget already. Basta 100 plus yung 100 plus yung district engineer.
Even if you are generous about, let's say
150.
200,000.
Wala.
Kahit 200,000 yan, nakita naman natin yung mga, he's been photographed with luxury watches, he's been photographed at courtside sa PBA games, meron din mga kotse tong si Bryce Hernandez, di ba? So we want to know, itong 110 million, how big is that restitution? Yes, it's good. That's the first part of his restitution. Pero how much more should we expect from him? How much more yung nakuha nila?
And can you recover all, if not all, at least most of the loot? Kasi I'm sure he spent a lot of it. I mean, you can get back cars, you can get back land, you can get back cash or jewelry. Pero what if, I splurged in the Riviera?
Oh, I mean, yung courtside tickets.
Hindi ko na magkano yun.
Let's say, I don't know, 20,000.
I was in the French Riviera with
How do you get that
chicken
back?
noodles. Oh.
Tama.
Or I splurged 200 million in the casino in Monte Carlo, mga ganun ba?
Or in the case of the Discayas, nag-viral din, remember, yung Christmas parties nila for the employees ng St. Gerard Construction. Di ba? Ang daming artista. It was very big venue. In Grande, the couple was wearing what I'm not sure, but what looks like designer outfits, right? So mukhang in Grande talaga. How do you even compute yung ano kailangan i-restitute doon? Right? So may magka-compute nun siguro. Cost of parties, 2 million.
I'm sure you'll never be able to recover all of it. Question is if you can recover most of it. Kasi I'm sure a lot of these people had a high life.
They lived a high life.
Diba?
We know that from the digital footprint. At least yung mga, in the case of Discayas, to a certain extent, in the case of Bryce Hernandez, diba? He was photos of him cropped up.
Okay. Teka, we have a guest this afternoon. Of course, I'm sure everybody does know na at 5 o'clock or 5:30 dapat this afternoon i-release yung ipopromulgate actually.
Here, in case nobody.
It's
right there on our big screen.
Ng appeals
this is the big
chamber.
news for today.
Yung appeal for interim release ni dating Pangulong Duterte. That's at 5:30. It may be delayed by half an hour, but make sure that you stay tuned. You tune into us kasi we are going to be broadcasting that live. In the meantime, we have, I think, already on the line. Do we have her already? We have ICC accredited lawyer attorney Cristina Conti who joins us this afternoon. Ma'am, attorney, good afternoon po, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon. And my update is it's going to be live streamed.
Teka, ma'am,
wala nang delay.
Ayan, there you go. So, sorry po, yung may audio is bad. Could you repeat what you said po?
Okay. So, good afternoon. Pero good news, walang delay ng 30 minutes.
Walang delay?
Ang reading ng decision today, yes. Walang delay.
So, it'll be at 5:30 our time.
Yes, and whoever's there at The Hague will be hearing the same things that we'll be hearing here. Of course, depends kung gaano kalakas yung internet natin.
Oh, that's great. And of course, attorney, we've seen your post, or I've seen your post. I know you're fully expecting for the appeals chamber to deny the request once again. And klaro lang natin sa audience natin, this is an appeal. This is a decision on the appeal. Remember that nag-decide na ang pre-trial chamber back in September to deny his request for interim release. Nag-appeal yung kampo ni former President Duterte, and this is the decision today. So in any case, attorney, walk us through why you are, I guess, 99% confident that it will be denied again.
One, there is no material, factual, or legal basis raised in the appeal. kumbaga, they're just asking the appeals chamber to look again and reappreciate the evidence that was already presented by the prosecution. For example, the statements of the president's family, and the vice president herself. Sabi ng defense, baka po mali yung appreciation nyo. Pero there was no denial that it happened, and there was no further evidence presented. For example, how about the whole reel? Because actually, it was a whole video, di ba? So, walang ganon. And so, if we're going to look simply at the rules, the pretrial chamber already covered why the rules apply this way. And I'm confident that when the appeals chamber look at the rules and the facts, same din yung conclusion nila, that the criteria have not been met to allow this person to be released.
Attorney, how would you know that they presented no further evidence?
It's in their appeal brief. So they were allowed to present or to argue further their side. From my appreciation, they simply are asking the appeals chamber to first rethink or reappreciate the information that was provided. And actually, most of the appeal is into the situation of the president. So what they asked was, or former president, what they asked was, the first things that they said was, he is 80 years old. So ganon. Sitwasyon ni Duterte yung nilalagay nila. Na-emphasize din doon na may medical information na naging available both sa pretrial chamber and apparently sa appeals chamber kasi pag-akit sa kanila yung mga papeles kasama. They're asking the appeals chamber to look at that again. Unfortunately, there's a segment of medical matters that will not be appreciated by the appeals chamber, and that would be the records pertaining to fitness to stand trial. Sabi din kasi ng pre-trial chamber, hiwalay na issue yan. Yes, may nakita tayong information, may nakita tayong medical reports, pero they were not sufficient to say that he should be released on humanitarian grounds. Sabi ng defense, paano yung iba pang medical reports na related sa kanyang fitness to stand trial? Dito sa appeals chamber, most probably hindi makakasama sa record. Well, I would say hindi kasama sa record. Kasi ang deadline ng expert's opinion on the medical fitness to stand trial ni Duterte ay sa December 5 pa.
Correct.
Okay.
So they won't have that in the record.
Ma'am, a lot of people are also wondering if they should read anything to the fact that the ICC Appeals Chamber is going to be broadcasting the promulgation publicly and live as well. Parang this was not the case the first time that the pretrial, the first time that the interim release petition was decided on. So people are wondering if they should see anything into that decision to broadcast this live. What do you think?
Okay. Well, the decisions of the pre-trial chamber or the proceedings, sometimes hindi talaga binobroadcast, pero the appeals chamber does broadcast the reading or the delivery of the decisions. The decisions of the appeals chamber, we had one already in July 2021 made. And we heard from them. If you remember, nagkaroon din tayo ng reading of this decision. And it was also, I think, delivered live. I have to check. Pero kakaiba to dun sa nangyaring March 2025, yes, na hearing, because that was before the appeals chamber and that is for the case of Duterte when he was arrested. Pero this happened before, so meron na tayong comparison, pero that was the July 2021 decision.
And I suppose the former president really does not have to be there to witness the promulgation. Is that correct? Because he signed a waiver. Yes.
Actually, this is argument that the confirmation of charges hearing could have proceeded because the suspect could have waived his appearance at that time. Di sana September 23, natuloy na yung hearing natin. This is a right that any suspect or accused can exercise. So, ang importante, meron siyang representative.
Attorney Kaufman in this case.
Well,
Yes.
we I have to say Attorney Kaufman wasn't named in the announcement that the decision will be made today, but we do know that he is the counsel, the lawyer on record for Duterte. Attorney Conti, there are three very specific grounds that the ICC can grant interim, will not grant interim release to a defendant. Number one, it's if the defendant, if there's a risk that the defendant may not appear before the judges. Number two, that they may create obstacles for the investigations or pose a threat to the safety of witnesses and victims. And number three, may be committing certain alleged crimes under ICC's jurisdiction. On what grounds, if he were to be denied, and you sound like you're confident that he will be, on what grounds kaya will they base the decision on?
Well, for the pretrial chamber, all three grounds were not met or met, depending on which way you take it. All three grounds were considered in the denial of the interim release. Yung una, the mere fact that they're calling this a kidnapping tells you that they are delegitimizing the court. Oh gosh, am I saying that right? Tinatry nilang i-attack yung legitimacy of the court. And by saying that therefore that he was kidnapped, he's unlikely to return to in the custody or submitted to the jurisdiction of the court. Second, they talked about the history of Duterte. And in fact, more recently, I'm looking at this portion that is redacted. But remember Regina Garma? She testified several times before the Quadcom. And in one of those hearings, she said that Duterte called her after one of the hearings. So that was concerning, I guess, for the ICC. But the other, of course, on record instance that Duterte interfered in some way was the Senate investigation in, I think, 2019 or 2018. And what came of that, there was on the record some intimidation of witnesses, parang really brief. And then second, what happened to the chairman of the committee that was hearing the DBS killing case? In prison, taken to jail on trumped up drug charges. And thirdly, yung Commission of Crimes, it was during the Quadcom hearings, November 13, 2024, if we recall, that he said, pag ako naging mayor, doblehin ko pa yan pertaining to the killings in Davao. And so the ICC took that into notice, that there could be more crimes committed if he is released. Remember at the time that he was arrested, March. So kumbaga hindi pa election season, sabihin na natin. Kaya kinonsider nila yon gravely.
So we know for a fact that they had paid attention to the Quad Committee hearings and that they took evidence away from that.
In a sense, yes. But the information that's noted in the pleadings are based on news reports. I guess the Quadcom transcripts will come during trial.
When they submit transcripts for the trial, how does that work? Do they have to request the lower house for an official transcript, or they were just paying attention to the live stream?
Well, at this point, they're referring to reliable information. And reliable information could come from the media. So what they have cited in several of the pleadings were news reports. So somebody sapat na yun. Pero I guess in the future, during trials, the evidence will be more scrutinized and therefore higher level of proof ang kailangan.
Ma'am, one of the reasons given by the defense in their filings for interim release was that the prosecution daw has not cited any recent security threats against, for example, the witnesses or their families. Does that hold any water? Were there really no security threats in recent memory against the families?
Well, the ICC pretrial chamber actually noted that it's not the certainty or it's not the fact that it happened. It's just the possibility that will happen and not the inevitability of something happening. That is considered. Ganun kaingat yung ICC. Just the fact na posible at merong record nung nakaraan, it could mean that it is possible and they would like to stop it as soon as possible. Hindi yung maghihintay sila ng may mamatay o may kinausap o may tinawagan bago nila proprotektahan yung mga witnesses. So, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So, it's the possibility, sabi ng pretrial chamber, rather than the inevitability of something happening.
Also, one of the reasons that they gave in filing their petition was that access of Mr. Duterte to confidential information and his ability to weaponize this information is now negligible because of the state of his mind. I know that goes back to
The fitness.
the fitness to stand trial. So you're confident that these issues will not be in consideration yet because nga December 5 pa dapat yung preliminary findings.
Yes, yung sa fitness to stand trial. Pero see, from their point of view, they're admitting as well na may access na sila sa information and some names of witnesses have already been disclosed. And the disclosure is not simply or not only to Duterte, but to his legal team, and I would imagine his family members. And so many others could have access to this list of people, and if you're being accused of leading a death squad, that most likely is a list, like the drug list before, is a list that could end up being a death list.
Ma'am, atrasan ng konti. If you don't mind, can I back up a bit? How often has the ICC granted interim release? Whether to principals or whether to accessories among those accused?
Well, specifically, ones who are accused of crimes against humanity, which is a high charge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, never.
Never.
To specifically when accused of this crime, but there were other, I think 5 other accused who were charged under Article 70 or offenses under the administration of justice. Of course, at the same time, Bemba had war crimes charged against him. Kaya lang na-acquit na siya dun sa war crimes. Nung naiwan sa kanya yung Article 70, saka lang siya nakapag-apply at kinranta ng interim release. And second, the timing of the interim release is crucial. They were, these 5 people, they were granted interim release at a stage in the proceedings when much of the evidence had already been presented. Sa atin yan, hindi pa nga nakakarating sa confirmation of charges.
Apo.
Parang pakakawala na agad. Kaya I would say the 99% is also based on the jurisprudence of the court.
Okay.
But ultimately, this whatever the decision today has no bearing on the confirmation of charges hearing, right?
In a sense, yes. In terms of timing, in terms of logistics. But as the witnesses have flagged for me, baka pag nakalabas po yan, baka lalong hindi mag-come forward yung witnesses or yung witnesses.
Yeah.
Or victims or witnesses.
Okay. We'll leave that there. We understand you have a meeting, but thank you so much for taking our call today. ICC accredited lawyer attorney Christina Conti. Salamat, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much. Ingat.
Let's now turn to News 5 anchor Ruth Cabal reporting to us live from The Hague. Ruth, kumusta ka dyan?
Hello, Reg. Hello, Bok. I'm inside the media office of the International Criminal Court. It's 9:29 in the morning here, and we're awaiting the schedule. But at 10:30, ang schedule for the reading of judgment. 10:30 dito, for the reading of judgment of the appeals chamber of the International Court regarding the appeal of the camp of former President Duterte for his interim release. Pero kagabi, di ba, I think nakausap niyo na rin si Attorney Conte na pag-usapan niyo na ito na nag-sign ng waiver si President Duterte na hindi siya dadalo doon sa hearing, parang waiver for his right to be present at the hearing. So hindi natin siya makikita dito at sinabi rin niya doon na yung abogado na lang yung ipapadala niya. Briefly, kakasabi lang din sa atin, one of the staff ng ICC, ang sinabi niya, kasi diba some lawyers are saying there might be a 30-minute delay. Kasi may live streaming. Pero ang sabi sa atin dito sa staff, paulit-ulit nga namin na kinonfirm, sabi wala daw magiging delay. So parang ano talaga siya, in real time yung paglabas ng streaming sa ICC website, sa YouTube at sa Facebook. So that will happen at 10:30. So nandito kami ngayon sa loob, kasama lang natin dito yung isa pa nating kasamahan from local media, and we're waiting here and hihintayin namin kung sabi kasi hindi pa sure if we can, as members of the media, we can go inside the gallery. It's an open court, so open to the public. Kanina rin before we came in, we already saw some of the supporters and yung iba naman represent on the side of the victims na nakapila sila kasi first come first serve for the public para makapasok at ma-witness nga itong reading of judgment. So mangyayari yan ng 10:30 and hopefully makapasok din tayo doon sa gallery ng court. Inaasahan natin na yung nababanggitan ng mga lawyers, it's either babalik na rin yung unang decision ng pre-trial chamber na for continued detention or i-affirm yan or pwede rin daw yan amyendahan. I think yung mga legal details ay nandiyan na. Pero sa ngayon, tayo pa lang yung nandito. Kanina sa labas, may mga nandun na rin na even foreign media, nakita natin, nagsushoot na sila doon sa labas nitong ICC. So, yan lang muna yung situation dito. Kami pa lang yun nandito sa loob. Pakita ko sa inyo. Ayan. Ngayon lang ako nakapasok dito, Bokred siya. So, ang laki ng media room nila. Pero sa labas kasi hindi kami pwede mag-shoot eh. So, limited lang kami dito sa area na ito.
Oo nga, Ruth, that was gonna be my first comment. Mukhang walang tao dyan. Is it...
Baka maling time zone, ha?
Hindi, it's the right time zone. Pero there's not a media frenzy there?
Doon sa labas, doon sa may barricade kasi, nagsend ako kanina ng videos, may barricade kasi, may mga ilan akong nakita ng mga foreign media na nandun. And then may iba rin na mga, a few supporters na nandun. Syempre, pumasok na tayo agad kasi ang alam nga natin, medyo mahigpit yung security check eh. Kasi kailangan i-check nila yung pangalan mo na nakalista ka talaga, hindi ka basta-basta makakapasok. Tapos chinek nila yung passport, kaya siniguro natin na we can come in early para ma-reserve yung slot natin dito. Pero so far, kami pa lang dalawa dito na media na nakabantay dito at naghihintay na makapasok sana doon sa gallery ng court.
But did I get you right that the public is allowed dun sa gallery, sa viewing gallery? And that's anybody and everybody who's outside, provided they pass the security checks, they're allowed in the gallery. The gallery, I suppose, is separate pa from where the judges are going to read out or promulgate the decision. Tama ba? Or is it the same area?
Hindi ko pa nakikita kasi, pero kasi nakalagay doon sa advisory, naglabas kasi ng advisory or ang ICC na sinabi nila, it's open to the public on a first come first serve basis. Kaya kanina nga bago tayo pumasok, nakita natin nandun yung mga ibang supporters and ibang representatives din ng victims. So may pila kasi. So kaya siguro sila, kasi nga first come first serve, siguro para nga makauna na sila sa pila. Pero tayo, dahil nakalista naman tayo as media, we just had to go through security check.
I asked that kasi if
you want to know if Harry Roque is going to go?
I was going to go to that too. Pero if the supporters, of course, they're allowed to go in because they are part of the public so long as they pass the security checks. I'm wondering lang if kasi what if the supporters get a verdict that they do not like, then you might have feedback inside the ICC itself.
Although
kaya nga hindi ko pa rin masabi kasi hindi ko pa alam kung ano yung itsura nung gallery, nung open gallery So hindi ko alam. Parang dati ang sinasabi nila may mga nakapasok na rin daw before eh. So hindi ko alam po paano yung naging setup noon. So hihintayin natin yan mamaya. Pero hindi kasi kami pwedeng pag pumasok na kami doon sa courtroom, hindi na kami pwedeng mag-take ng videos or pictures doon. But may again, meron namang live streaming.
Yeah.
But if you recall, Bok, in his first appearance, there was an area, correct? There was an area that was closed off, and I'm guessing that's where the public can sit behind. It's behind a glass wall.
So it's
they can
isolated.
see, pero hiwalay pa rin dun sa main courtroom. I guess you can call it a courtroom, bro. Main courtroom. Tapos you can see sa sides yung defendant, the prosecutor, and then in front are the chamber.
So the public may
chamber
not
judges.
necessarily be in the same room as the judges.
Parang
Yes, as
hiwalay
the
yata
judges, oo.
Okay.
And again, iba yung setup nito, hindi ito yung sa pre-trial chamber na
pre-trial
tatlo, no?
chamber.
Lima, oo.
Ito 5.
I think na-mention na yung mga legal aspects na 5, oo, yung judges noong appeals chamber.
Yung tanong ni Reg kanina, si Harry ba nandyan?
Hindi ko nakita kanina. Hindi ko nakita kanina pa eh. Kasi maaga rin tayo nandun sa labas, ano? Pero so far, hindi ko pa siya nakita. So makikibalita tayo kung anong mga eksena doon sa labas. Kasi nga, nagmadali rin tayong makapasok because we were told na medyo mas strict yung security. They had to, check our press ID, our passports, and then of course, yung may x-ray for yung mga bags.
Ruth, any sightings of Attorney Nicholas Kaufman? Have you seen him yet?
Hindi ko pa rin siya nakita so far kasi 1 hour pa naman, almost an hour pa naman before. Hello, morning. Before the actual hearing.
Okay, that'll be interesting as well because again, he wasn't named in the papers announcing the decision today, but we know, of course, he's the counsel. He's the lead counsel on record. I'm just wondering whether there's going to be any surprises today in terms of representation ni Duterte. But I suppose not because we haven't heard anything, no? Oo.
Sinabi lang kasi dun sa letter is yung iba pa ubaya sa lawyers, di ba? Yung
Just the
pagdalo ngayon
lawyers. Pero walang pangalan ni Kaufman.
Or by any chance, any family members there?
Ang alam
si
natin
Omar
may
Duterte,
mga
I saw him
parating.
do a live
may mga
just last week dun sa The Hague.
Oo, meron may pasabi ata na may representative ang family na darating. So abangan natin kung
okay.
sino 'yan.
Okay. Pero hindi pa you haven't heard anything.
Wala pa tayong information kung sino, pero I think magkakaroon sila ng representative.
Alam mo, kung may dala kang humba, bigla lumabas si Harry.
Oo nga. Oo,
talaga.
titignan na. Kasi actually, nung medyo madilim pa rin kanina at umuulan eh. Kaya feeling ko hindi
Umaga
din
nga pala,
agad
oo.
dumating yung mga tao. Tas mahangin pa. Nasa 9 degrees lang naman siya. Pero yun na nga, umuulan, mahangin.
Oo.
Kaya medyo malamig kanina. And yung sunset nila actually is past 8. Yun ang kanilang sunset. Kaya feeling ko kaya hindi din ganun kaagad dumating yung mga tao pa. Dahil naghihintay pa na gumanda yung weather.
Ruth, sorry, you might have mentioned this, and I might have missed this. Pag nakapasok na kayo, can you take photos or you're not allowed to take photos at all?
No, we're not allowed
Okay.
inside the public gallery.
So kukunin nila yung phones once you're in?
Hindi ko sure kung kukunin. Hindi. Sinabi
Or
pala na
system.
parang bawal yung metal or I guess bawal yung phone. Oo.
Yeah, they might take them away. Honesty
Yeah.
system.
Si sister, alam mo ng Pilipino eh.
Oo, sneak a photo in your car. Okay. Sige, we'll let you go for now. And then of course, we'll await the decision. Should come out in less than an hour's time kasi 4:38 na dito here in the Philippines. Thank you so much for
52
your
minutes.
reporting, Ruth Cabal, reporting to us
We'll be
live
back
from The
later.
Hague.
Thanks,
yes,
guys.
we'll call you back in later. Thank you, Ruth.
Pinan mo, talagang nagpadala tayong tao doon, oh.
Oh yeah, of course. It's appeals. We just need to take a very quick break right now. You're watching Storycon on One News. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.
You've got developing news in the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
And I'm Regina Lay, still...
With us in spirit.
I was going to say still with us, Ronald Llamas, our political pundit, who but he's not because
He's on the way back.
Pabalik pa lang
He's
siya
supposed to
from
be on the way
Europe.
back
So he's
from
traveling today, so we will excuse
He
him.
wants to fly back in time for the November 30 rally on Sunday.
Oo. So yun, we're on extended coverage today because
Yeah.
at 5:30 we are awaiting the decision on the appeal for interim
Appeals
release by former President Rodrigo Duterte's camp.
Background lang for those who have very short memories. Okay, the ICC issued an arrest warrant against Duterte March 7. It was classified as public March 11. March 12, the next day, he was surrendered to Interpol by the Philippine government and flown over to The Hague, where he faced what was that? What was the term for that when he was read the charges? The reading of the charges.
The reading of the charges.
Yeah, the reading of the charges. Just a few days after that, the charges are, of course, crimes against humanity involving murder and attempted murder from November 2011 to March 2019. So we've had a bit of back and forth, and the Duterte camp asked the pretrial chamber to allow interim release, meaning papakulan si dating Pangulong Duterte to a third country. But a decision was made on September 26 by the pretrial chamber 1 rejecting the request for interim release. The appeal of the Duterte camp for interim release was filed June 12, 2025. Among the arguments raised by the Duterte camp, number one, that he does not meet the conditions for continued detention, that he does not pose objective risk of flight. Repeat that. He does not pose objective risk of flight. Also, psychiatric and physiological reasons, and that he would not escape for fear of embarrassing his hosts. Also, the argument that it will not be difficult to find him wherever he is hiding if he does, because he's one of the most recognized people now in the planet now. Also, because he commits to return when asked to do so by the ICC, and that the prosecution now has not cited any recent security threats against witnesses and their families. Also, that Duterte's access to confidential information and his ability to weaponize this information is now negligible because of the state of his cognitive health. Supposedly no concrete risks exist that Mr. Duterte will continue to commit. This was the controversial one.
Will continue to commit crimes.
There is no risk that Mr. Duterte will continue to commit crimes, given that he has agreed to restrictions that totally neutralize the risks and that he will be residing well outside the geographic scope of the alleged crimes. Also, they cited what they called compelling humanitarian grounds that would or should require his interim release. However, the pretrial chamber 1 decided on September 26 to reject that petition for these grounds. Number one, there exists a risk that he will continue committing these crimes. Number two, the son is in a position of power, and his position of power is at the location where witnesses may be living, and it's also the location where some of the crimes were allegedly committed. Also, hindi pa raw unreasonable period yung detention ni Duterte at that time given the complexity of the case. Also, that detention is needed to ensure Duterte's appearance, that he not obstruct or endanger investigations or proceedings and prevent the commission of related crimes. And the pretrial chamber said also that at this particular point, the argument for humanitarian grounds does not exist because he enjoys the right to medical treatment right now at the ICC detention facility, and he also enjoys access to his family. So with that, na-reject ang kanilang petition at
And
sila po
this is
iapela.
the appeal. In fact, the title was an urgent appeal. urgent request for interim release is what they filed before the ICC. The ICC appeals chamber is composed of 5 judges.
5?
We don't know who's going to be sitting
Iba ho tong grupong
today.
to.
Iba sa pre-trial chamber 1. Kasi baka i-bombard na naman on social media
Oo nga.
ng mga
Like
supporters.
last time, oh.
Iba tong set of judges from the pre-trial chamber na nag-decide na mag-issue ng arrest warrant kay Duterte. So itong appeals chamber composed of 5 judges, one of whom is Judge Tomoko Ane, who is the president of the International Criminal Court.
Okay.
But looks like it will be, the presiding one will be Judge Luz del Carmen Ibanez Carranza. I'm not sure where she's from.
Parang Pinoy na Pinoy yung pangalan, no?
Luz del Carmen Ibanez Carranza. The prosecutor took receipt of the this was announced November 20 pala, that the decision will be made today. It will be delivered in open court in both English and French, the English version being the authoritative one. And again, as Attorney Cristina Conti said to us kanina, wala naman daw nagbago in terms of the filings of the defendant.
No new arguments
They
made.
did not make new arguments. They did not present further evidence. In a nutshell, they basically just said,
You misappreciated.
you maybe misunderstood the grounds, or you maybe have another look at it, right? You may have missed something, is what they're saying. Of course, I translated that
Sabi ko na
there.
misappreciated. Ikaw naman missed something.
Of course,
Misappreciated seems to be the
Of
better
course,
word.
I translated that very loosely. But the point being, walang bagong evidence, walang
Hindi nyo
bagong
lang naintindihan.
argument. Oo, baka lang hindi nyo naintindihan. Pakibasa ulit and see if you might come to a different decision this time. And again, this is just for interim release. Hindi ito, as far as we know, it will not affect the movement, the progress of the case, the actual case of crimes against humanity.
Kasi whether you are granted interim release, the case moves forward so long as walang decision otherwise.
It will move forward, and in fact, December 5 na yung deadline.
Deadline for the medical report, or medical
Oo.
findings.
Kasi, yes,
His
correct.
fitness to stand trial.
The question on Duterte's fitness to stand trial and his mental acuity, that they will decide on that by December 5th.
There have been some preliminary findings na there are some issues with the former president, but ang question lang is, of course, whether these issues would or should prevent him from standing trial. In the past, the ICC has actually, in some cases, it has granted petitions of the accused not to stand trial. But at least in one case, the petition not to stand trial was granted, but he was not released. He still is in detention. May mga ganon. In other words, yes, you may not be fit to stand trial, but that doesn't mean you get to be released. It's not the same thing. I forget the case. I didn't explain all that before. Pero may ganon eh. And another case naman, the petition not to stand trial was granted based on medical issues, and the accused was diverted to a hospital, a military hospital in the home country, pero in a military hospital.
But also crucial din yung sinabi ni Attorney Conti kanina, no, which is that as far as she knows, no one who's been charged with a crime against humanity,
which is a major one,
has been allowed interim release. So that's also crucial context in this case, because it is a high crime, and there are 3 very specific grounds that the ICC judges are looking at in deciding whether or not to grant a defendant interim release, right? And according to Conti, Duterte did not meet, or rather met all of those conditions, meaning number 1, he is they think, at least this is the based on the decision by the pretrial chamber, that he may not appear before the judges, that he may create obstacles for the investigations, and he may commit certain alleged crimes under ICC's jurisdiction. Again, that's according to Attorney Conti.
And take note, in the previous judgment kasi on the request for interim release, they cited several statements made by the Duterte family, which tends to sow fear on the judges, I suppose, and the public. Na, naku, baka they're still capable of getting back at the witnesses.
That's one thing I wonder about. How closely do they pay attention to what's still going on here, right? To the statements made by the children, for example. Like today, last night specifically, Mayor Baste Duterte. Actually, can I call him mayor? Vice mayor siya, di ba?
Acting mayor.
Is he acting
He's
mayor?
acting mayor.
Yeah, acting mayor. Made comments about, made threats to addicts in Davao City. In the same vein as Rodrigo Duterte used to threaten the drug addicts, right?
It is
What was his?
trademark.
What did he say? The day of reckoning is coming. Something along those lines. And then, he was at the pulpit, galit na galit siya, and he was threatening all the drug addicts. Really reminded me of his father. So I'm wondering whether the things that they say do play into the decision.
Or whether they wait for submissions from, for example, their prosecution to buttress their points against interim release. For example, are prosecution lawyers allowed to submit supplementary motions or evidence, developing stories or developing stories about new quotes or new assertions or new threats?
Mukhang there is a way, because again, something that Attorney Conti said, they present evidence based on reliable information, quote unquote. And this reliable information could be in the form of media articles, news reports, right? So as we continue to cover, things on the ground here, baka na-feedback yun sa back to the ICC.
Example, let's do a quick Google lang. If you use something as simple as Google and you look at Duterte threats, madami kagad eh. So it's all there, it's all out there, it's all in public, and then they can assess from there.
Okay, switch gears lang tayo, because I think our resident political pundit is trying to join us at the moment. He is at the airport, I believe. Wala pa, but he's at immigration is what we were told. But he wants to dial in because he wants to talk about a very...
immigration here?
Immigration in Europe.
In Europe?
Because he wants to talk about another thing that has gone viral today. Yung news about the DTI Secretary saying...
yung 500.
Kasha na yung 500 pesos for Noche Buena. So obviously, everyone was so angry about that. Galit na galit yung mga tao. And it has gone viral. Yun yung rage-baiting story of the day, no? Talaga.
Rage-baiting, nakita ko. Rage-baiting, okay.
So she was asked kung sapat na nga ba yung 500 pesos for Noche Buena, and she said,
depends on your appetite.
Hindi. Sabi niya, and this is paraphrasing, pwede ka na bumili ng ham, ng spaghetti, meron ng macaroni doon. And, of course, everybody got very upset over that. Here you go. It spawned a lot of debate online.
Agree ka bang kasha ang 500 para sa Noche Buena? Well, kung mag-isa ka, kung dalawa lang kayo.
Well, for a family The question is for a family.
For a regular family, which is composed of 5, at least the average family.
So,
under
ito na nga.
PSA.
So, sinabi niya to today, and then people were very angry, so it went viral. And then si PCO spokesperson, Attorney Claire Castro, was asked about it. And I think she made things worse. I'm sorry, Yusek, pero it's true. Kasi she said something along the lines of, depende sa diskarte yan. So, meron naman mga discount sa supermarket. Depende. She really didn't want to speak on behalf of Trade Secretary Roque, but in any case, she said something along those lines na depende sa diskarte yan. And then this afternoon, si Trade Secretary Roque held a press conference to explain what she meant. And I thought she was going to apologize. But instead, she pulled out the DTI price guide, a list of prices that they recommended for basic goods, and she itemized it kung ano yung kakasya sa 500 na yon. So, for example, she said may luncheon meat, 41 pesos. These are just rough examples. Hindi ko na maalala yung exactly sinabi niya. Luncheon meat, then you can have ham, then you can have spaghetti. But in any case, people got even angrier.
Kasi ang 500, kape lang yung Regina yun eh.
Uy, grabe ka naman. Kape ko is from the office. But, yun nga, so in-itemize niya, sabi niya, these are based on the DTI price guide, and people thought it was very tone deaf and very out of touch. Because, number one, of course, there's a wide range. First of all, walang price freeze. Again, we will repeat, ang price freeze nangyayari lang in times of calamities.
What we usually have are suggested retail prices.
Exactly. So let's say the DTI
suggested.
Exactly. Let's say the DTI puts out MSRP, maximum suggested retail price, supermarkets, groceries. They can't compel the groceries to abide by those prices. Kasi nga, we operate in a free market. Suggested
Weird
lang
nga
siya.
na merong maximum suggested.
Oo.
Parang maximum yan na suggested. So, pag lumagpas ako dyan, ano gagawin ninyo?
Yes. Wala. I mean, they can't hold you off to jail. They can't charge you with something kasi maximum suggested lang nga siya. And
So, nag-maximum ka pa.
so in any case, ito yung ginamit niya to explain her stance and to say that what she had in mind was a family of 4, siguro mother, father, 2 children, 2 small children. That's what she had in mind for a 500 peso noche
But I
buena.
remember the PSA standard is family of 5 eh. It's almost always family of 5. But anyway, sige. And FNRI din.
So and then our friend Ronald, obviously,
Talagang
it also
pumiting,
na-trigger din siya by all of this, and his point was that it's a really bad response, and itong question na to about how much should Filipino families spend on Noche Buena. Tama si Ronald, it comes up every year. The business and economic beat reporters ask the officials this every single year. So why do we still get it so wrong, right? Kasi nasabi na to ni if I'm not mistaken, former NEDA secretary, well now it's DepDev, Balisacan. Or was it Secretary Benjok, no? Hindi ko na maalala. I'm sorry if I'm getting the names mixed up. Pero there was also an incident a few years ago when they said a certain amount was kasya na.
I can go further back eh. I think in 2007, our reporter, si Jason Torres, did a story on 888. There was a claim in 2007 or 2006, I'm trying to remember when, na the government standard for what constitutes for how much you can spend for a nutritious meal was 8 pesos per meal. In other words,
how long ago was
if
this?
you had 8 pesos, you can get a nutritious meal already. It was around 2007 or 2006. I'm trying to
so almost 20 years ago.
We called the story 88. Kasi parang sa 8 pesos daw,
pwede ka na
mabubuhay ka na per meal.
Non-nutritious, hindi lang pansit canton.
Nutritious daw. So, kami naman, we were astounded. Where did these guys get their numbers? But, I think it was the FNRI then said na, but we have a menu. If you follow the menu, you can afford to live off a certain number.
Yes. So mukhang ito yung
pero pag mag-ikot ka, kaya mo magbuhay sa 8 piso na so, tatawanan ka.
Nutritiously okay, yes, mabubuhay ka sa pansit canton every day, but is that nutritious? All right? And same issue as with the MSRP nga, yung DTI price guide. Yes, you have that on hand, but that's not. Is that reflective of the day-to-day realities for millions of Filipinos, right?
And whether ordinary families can afford to to wait for deals or wait for discounts and
Oo
all
nga,
that.
that's the thing.
Ganun.
Mag-aabang ka pa.
Yeah, kasi galing ka trabaho. Mamasada pero babiyahe ka, magko-commute ka pa. Bagsak ka na pagdating sa bahay.
Mag-aabang ka pa ng buy one, take one.
Oh, although on the other hand, I also understand their point of view na if you buy in bulk and cook for a group, then when you divide the costings,
It could come up
goes
to
down.
that.
It
Oo.
goes down. Pero of course, that's the ideal situation. The very, very ideal situation, which is not always very practical. So, merong theoretical at merong real.
Oo. And it's also the way it's communicated, right? Remember number one, like I said, this question gets asked of the officials, the economic officials, the trade officials, every single year. How much is enough for Noche Buena this year, right? And number two, remember, we are in the midst of a massive corruption scandal.
Yeah.
Like, on the one hand, we're talking how much? 450 billion pesos in insertions sa budget. And on the other hand, you're gonna tell us na 500 pesos is enough for Noche Buena for a family. Parang, that's a huge disconnect, right? You gotta, yung context that we're living in now is...
Parang yung poverty index.
yeah,
so
isa
it's
pa yun.
very controversial. I remember before in the program The Chiefs, si Pernia, we had Pernia. And even he said na
Outdated
the poverty
na siya.
index that the government is quoting is a bit
low.
too low.
Oo. Ito ba yung 2,000?
I forget na eh.
Nakalimutan ko na rin yung figure.
12,000 ba or
A month.
10,000 a month?
Oo.
For a family of 5. It was always a family of 5 eh. Sabi niya, that should be around 20 or double.
Mabagal
Be
nga
practical.
kasi yung I know they update the numbers, yung poverty indicators, economic indicators every year, pero I think the rate at which they change it, yung to upgrade the numbers is a bit low. So yun nga, mukhang hindi reflective.
And they always aim for the lowest number that they can
Of course.
go for.
Of course.
Because it's bentahe. Anong gusto mong benta na?
So ngayon, everybody's asking, saang grocery kami pwede pumunta?
Oo.
Para makabili ng Noche Buena that will fit 500 pesos, di ba?
So, yun. It's a battle of narratives din siya.
It's a battle of narratives. I don't know, baka na-hold up yata si Ronald sa immigration.
Huwag mo na hold up.
Sorry.
Got held up. Ay, ganun
he got
din eh.
detained. I was gonna say detained.
O, di na raw
Ay, hindi na sumagot. Sorry.
Oh.
He was supposed to join us
Kasi
just
usually
now.
sa immigration, bawal kang magtatawag.
Oo nga, pero baka na
Baka mamaya dinampot yan.
I said hold up, ikaw dinampot.
Bawal mag-gadget sa immigration.
I know, pero I thought baka natagalan siya sa immigration.
Lalo sa ibang bansa. Baka dito makalusot pa siya na, oy, kilala ba ako sino ako? Oo, si
Sen Edu.
Sen Edu sa ibang bansa. Hindi papasa yun.
Because he was trying to join us just now to talk about this precisely kasi galit na galit siya about this DTI Noche Buena issue. But mukhang hindi na natin maabot.
Oh, teka, we have our second guest for today. We have ICC accredited lawyer Gilbert Andres. Attorney Andres, magandang hapon po. And thank you for joining us again.
Magandang hapon, Ed and Regina. Great to be back.
Oo. Sir, ano ba? Excited tayo?
Sir, mukha kitang you look like you're a judge. Parang you're dressed like a judge.
We suppose you're here, no?
Excited po ako. Kasi on the part of the victims of the war on drugs, we really hope and pray that the appeal on the interim release will actually be dismissed by the appeals chamber.
When we talked to you earlier, I think it was 2 days ago, you were pretty confident na it's going to be dismissed as well. You don't see any changes from that position several days ago?
Well, in any case, Ed, even if the appeal will be granted, it doesn't mean that the charges were actually dismissed. Because the containing charges still continue. And in fact, there's still a remedy on the part of the victims as well as the prosecution. They can still apply for a review before the pretrial chamber. So there's actually Rule 118. So whatever happens, this is really a victim-centered proceeding. So we're confident of that.
So if lang, just in case that the appeal is granted and thus favoring the defense, the prosecution can file its own appeal to the appeal decision. Did I get you right?
Okay, it's not really an appeal before the appeals chamber. It's really a review before the pretrial chamber. A review of the release of Mr. Duterte based on a hypothetical granting of the appeal. So because that's a mechanism provided for in Rule 118 of the Rules of Procedure.
Just a quick time check right now. It's 5:11. We are 19 minutes away from the decision being read out at the ICC over the appeal of Duterte's interim release. We're going on special coverage, of course. You can catch our special coverage on TV, of course, and all social media platforms, One News, One PH, News 5, and True FM. We're going to carry it on until the end of the live stream of the ICC.
Attorney, are you with the families of the victims or the people you represent? Are you with them right now? Are they also watching and waiting for the promulgation?
Well, for security reasons, Ed, I'm not with them. Although they're monitoring it, we've given them directions and instructions as to how to resort to the link of the live wire feed. Although based on the website of the ICC, there's actually a 30-minute delay. So let's also expect a 30-minute delay of the live wire portion.
Well, sir, we're getting conflicting reports there. Baka raw wala na yung delay. We have a reporter on the ground there sa ICC, and they were being told daw na it's going to be live real time.
Simultaneously.
We're hoping that is the case para we don't have to wait another 30 minutes kasi haba nun.
That's the best. Ed and Regina, kung wala nang delay, di mas maganda talagang tayo, real time.
So, but you also said, I know you've guested on a number of our shows today. Thank you for that, and I'm sorry that we keep calling you. But you also said, may recourse pa din, let's say it gets denied, the Duterte camp still has recourse. They can appeal the decision within 120 days. Is that correct?
Regina, it's not an appeal before the appeals chamber. It's actually a resort to the pretrial chamber. Kasi, let's say hypothetically, na the appeal was actually dismissed. So if it was dismissed, there's a portion there in the rules of procedure, Rule 118, wherein the pretrial chamber actually reviews any decisions as to the release or even the detention of a detainee. So the pretrial chamber has 120 days or every 4 months, ni-review po nila yun.
Okay.
Based on motion, whether by the prosecution or by the defense. Now, this works both ways. Kung mag-grant, fortunately, yung appeal, that can also be resorted to, yung review procedure na yan within 120 days or 4 months.
And in the course of the review, do you mean the pretrial chamber has the authority to reverse a decision by the appeals chamber?
Strictly speaking, it's not really reversing the decision of the appeals chamber, but it's really looking at the facts de novo. That's as of now, as of that moment, 4 months from now. Kasi alam mo, Ed and Regina, interim release decision is really fact-based. It's really context-based. And we know that the context actually changes, especially if a person is released. So that's why we're really hoping that the appeal on the interim release application will really be dismissed.
Attorney, what was that phrase you used? In the moment?
De novo. In the moment, de novo.
De novo.
De novo.
Okay, I'll see. I learned something new again today.
Spell mo nga.
Denovo. No?
Tingin ko hindi. I think it's French.
Nouveaau if it's French.
Tama siya, Denovo.
Oh.
And two separate words.
Thank you. Hindi ka kasi learn it, Ed.
Okay.
I'm kidding. So technically, it's not another appeal. This is the decision with finality of the as
Appeals
far as
chamber.
the interim release is concerned. Pero every 4 months or so, they can review it.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
But in the meantime, while the pretrial chamber is reviewing, does the appeals chamber decision stand and is it implementable?
Oh, yes. Yes, Ed, it stands, it's implementable, and it's not subject to further appeal anymore. In
Okay.
fact, Ed and Regina, we can learn from the Philippine experience. Remember that the Philippines in, I think, 2022, filed for a suspension of the investigation based on Article 18 of the Rome Statute. And then, I think, sometime January 2023, the pretrial chamber actually denied that prayer, and then the Philippine government appealed it, and there was an appeals chamber decision that was even live stream last July of 2023, and it dismissed the appeals of the Philippine government, and after that there was no more further appeal for the Philippines. That's why we can now see the ultimate result of that investigation that was reopened by the pretrial chamber and affirmed by the appeals chamber.
Sir, let me just get this clear. Just in case the appeals chamber grants the appeal, the pretrial chamber has 120 days to review. But given that if the appeals chamber grants the appeal, does that mean that Duterte in that case would be allowed to go free until makapagdesisyon ang pretrial chamber on its review?
Okay, in the unforeseen event that the appeal was granted, I think there will be conditions that will be provided for, because it's in Rule 118 of the Rules of Procedure, and it doesn't mean that Mr. Duterte is free to go around anywhere in the world. He's only limited to the states to the state that was actually identified by the defense in their pleading, and who's willing to actually accept Mr. Duterte. So that's really where the review is, whether or not Mr. Duterte, in the hypothetical scenario that his interim release was actually granted on appeal, that's where the de novo review comes in. Did he actually fulfill the conditions of his interim release? Because that's really a fact-based determination. That's why there's that provision for a review every 120 days.
De novo again.
De novo.
Hear that word again, de novo.
Because they will review de novo, the circumstances de novo. And then it's interesting to us as well that the appeal was made without the defendant presenting further evidence or making any new arguments. Is that unusual for you?
Oh, it's not unusual, Regina, because in fact they filed a brief on their interim release appeal, so that is already enough. It's really a question that's before the appeals chamber, and all of the arguments, all of the factual allegations are already before the appeals chamber. And in fact, the defense already filed their brief on their appeal on interim release. So nothing unusual, really.
Because I just essentially we would have thought that they would at least present something new to make their case, right? Because
Like new evidence, new testimonies,
because the
new
pre-trial
arguments.
chamber unanimously agreed that he should not be granted interim release. So when they appealed, we thought, oh, maybe they have something another ace up their sleeve, right, to show that the chamber that he deserves interim release. But wala pala, according to Attorney Conti. So that was a surprise to us.
Sige. Sir, you go first. Yeah.
Medyo off topic from Duterte, but with in relation to the Philippines' membership to the ICC, of course, that question is still up in the air. But a few weeks ago, I remember we spoke to, I don't remember if he was ombudsman already then or he was still Justice Secretary, but Boying Remulla, and he said that they are assisting, the state is providing protection for the witnesses. Ombudsman na siya nun. Okay, so providing protection for the witnesses to the war on drugs. Does that mean anything for you? I mean, it sounds to us like it's a bit of a big step forward from where we were. Because at the start of the Marcos administration, they were a lot more ambiguous about where we stand. And then this time around, he openly told us, yes, we're providing protection to the witnesses.
Well, Regina, it's actually an indication that the Philippine government is actually cooperating with the ICC. In fact, we at Center Law, we have been arguing that the Philippines has a residual obligation. May natitira pa pong obligasyon ng Pilipinas to cooperate with the ICC, and that's provided for in Article 127 of the Rome Statute. In fact, last year, during the Assembly of State Parties of the ICC, I actually stated during the general debate that the Philippines has that obligation to fully cooperate with the ICC. That's why I'm very happy because of that statement of Ombudsman Remulla, which means that we're really cooperating based on our obligation under international law.
Mm-hmm. Sir, what happens next after today? Regardless of whether his appeal is granted, what are the next steps? Kasi di ba, merong issue dun sa kanyang kalusugan.
Fitness to stand trial.
Merong yung confirmation of charges and so on down the line. Can you run us through what are the next events and the next deadlines?
Okay. There are actually 3 pending issues. The first one is the appeal on the interim release, which will be decided this afternoon in a few minutes. Number 2 is the appeal on the jurisdictional challenge. Remember that the pretrial chamber actually dismissed the jurisdictional challenge of Duterte, and that's also before the appeals chamber. So let's expect also a decision on that. And third will be the issue of fitness to stand trial, which is still before the pretrial chamber 1. And the pretrial chamber already had a deadline. There's actually a December 5 deadline for the 3-person panel of experts to give their individual report or joint report. And then a week after, or December 12, the parties or participants can also give their response to the experts' report. So hopefully within the year, or maybe early next year, the pretrial chamber can actually decide on Mr. Duterte's fitness to stand trial, and then we'll go to the next step, hopefully, which is the schedule of the confirmation of charges.
That was going to be my next question. At the rate we're going, confirmation of charges hearing, when do you think? I mean, or is it too difficult to tell from this vantage point?
Just to remind people, sir, September 28 originally, dapat yung confirmation of charges.
23. In fact, that's the reason why I was still there in the Netherlands, to really wait for that and to really appear in that. But expect January 27 of 2026, that's the start of the court calendar year of the ICC. So hopefully after January 27, there will be a confirmation of charges for Mr. Duterte.
Attorney, what does that mean? January 27 is the start of the court calendar year, meaning they adjourn for the Christmas break, I guess?
And Chinese New Year.
Yes, they adjourn for the holidays because it's a holiday in the Netherlands. So they also follow the holiday in the state of seat of the ICC. Okay. And then after that, they will also have a calendar year start, or a court calendar year start. So they also have a small ceremony. I think it's like the American Supreme Court. So there's a term that's also the same for the ICC.
Okay, ang tagal ng break they start up again January 27. Oh. Well, I don't know when they're going to adjourn in December, but safe to say, I guess, before Christmas. So if they start up again only in January 27, that's a pretty long break. So at this rate, we're looking at maybe first, second quarter, no? before they decide on
For the confirmation of charges scheduling.
the scheduling pa lang.
Sir, scheduling pa lang yan, no? Hindi pa yun mismo yung confirmation of charges.
Scheduling pa lang, and hopefully yung schedule na rin mismo ng confirmation of charge, hopefully first quarter of 2026.
Sir, pahabol lang. Just so that everybody's clear what exactly confirmation of charges means. In layman's terms, what does it mean? Is that parang indictment?
Actually, Ed, wala talaga siyang wala siyang parallel sa Philippine domestic procedures as well as sa American procedures. In fact, the drafters of the ICC Rome Statute, they don't want to use the word indictment.
Okay.
That's why the phrase used was document containing charges. Now, it means that if there's a confirmation of charges, the issue there is, ikukumpirma ba itong mga sinampang charges against kay Mr. Duterte such that tutuloy tayo sa trial proper? Kasi to be technical about it, pre-trial pa rin tayo ngayon.
Yeah.
So yun yung magiging tanong sa confirmation of charges. Yung count 1, 2, and 3, kukumpirmahin ba natin to na tutuloy tayo sa trial? Yan magiging tanong dyan.
Is it possible na hindi pa na decisionan yung fitness to stand trial, but they will already schedule the confirmation of charges hearing, or no, they have to determine the fitness first?
I think they will really have to determine the fitness to stand trial because it's a prejudicial issue and it's the primordial issue bago pumunta dun sa confirmation of charges. And we hope na talagang ma-confirm nga na fit to stand trial. Si Mr. Duterte, nag-sign pa nga siya ng waiver.
Okay, time check. We're about 3 minutes away from the
2 minutes na.
ICC. Well, 2 minutes away from the ICC live stream. Again, this is for the decision on the appeal of the Duterte camp for interim release. What you're seeing right now
paglaya.
is the live stream already from the ICC website, and we expect this to
Run for anywhere from 30 minutes to some would say even 2 hours. We don't know.
But should be
Baka naman
brief,
di
I
ganun
think,
kahaba.
because yung first appearance was brief, where they just read out the charges. Although nakapagsalita si E.S. Medjaldea back then.
Yeah. Si Attorney Gilbert Andres, we'll let him go na. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us. We hope to get you again later. Sana mayroon
For
tayo
some reactions.
reaction doon sa ano mang gagawin ngayong hapon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Attorney.
At I think I saw Ronald Llamas kanina. Is Ronald with us now? Ronald is now with us. Ronald
Hindi siya
Llamas.
na-detain?
Ronald Llamas.
Ronald, pasok! Where are
Hello.
you? Hello!
Oh, ayan. And Tito Ronald. Hindi ka na nakikita.
Kumusta? Pasensya na. Nasa
Asan
airport. Pauwi na.
Asan ka? Anong airport? Paris?
Dito sa Charles de Gaulle.
Oh, sana dumaan ka naman ng The
Pauwi na.
Hague.
Dahil hindi na ako pumunta sa The Hague.
Doon ka hinahanap ng mga taong bayan.
Oo nga, sayang. Actually, may ticket na ako eh. May train ticket na ako.
Ayun.
Pero
There he is.
I don't want to rain on their party, so.
Dapat naki-interview ka na din doon.
Pero ito kasi marami itong mga connect-connect eh. Baka may nababalitaan ka. Baka lang sakali, no?
Baka,
Ay, i-reject yan. I-reject yung interim release.
baka may kopya ka na ng decision.
Baka may copy ng desisyon.
I-reject yan. Bakit? Umaasa ba kayo na ibibigay?
Hindi naman.
Well, you can never be
Tatanungan
sure,
kami.
right?
Trabaho namin magtanong, hindi manghula.
Exactly.
Parang life lang. You can never be sure in life.
You can never be sure.
Mga ganong hugot talaga.
You just don't know what you're gonna get.
You're
diba?
saying rejected yan because you want it to be rejected or because you really believe based on the merits of the case and the arguments presented or the failure of the arguments presented, yun ba yung basis?
All of the above.
Iksi naman sagot mo.
All of the above. Dahil yung president laban sa pag-grant ng interim release. Ikalawa, yung merits of the case. very compelling yung evidence, lalo na yung kay Las Cañas tsaka kay Matubato, etc. Yung corroboration. No? Ikatlo ay yung precedents. Ito yung first time na isang Asian ay makakasuhan sa International Criminal Court. Lagi na lang naaasar yung mga Africans. Ba't puro na lang kami? Meron din namang crimes against humanity sa Asia. So, maraming factors against interim
I thought
release.
there was a Cambodian or the Laotian. Which one was that?
Sa ICC?
Oo, di ba?
Wala pa
Is
nakita.
it the first? Wala pa.
Wala pa.
Ibang korte, dinala sila Pol Pot eh.
That's
Oo.
it. Oo.
Tsaka may ICC naman ang panahon ni Pol Pot.
Wala pa. Wala pa.
You have kasi several international tribunals eh. You have the Tribunal for Yugoslavia, Tribunal for Rwanda, and so on down the line. And then of course you have the ICC as well.
Yes.
So Ronald, lahat kami nakaabang. Baka raw ma-delay, kaya kinakabang kami. Baka pwede mo silang urutin na...
Okay masyadong kabahan, no?
Kali ni Ed, nasa ano lang eh, local trial court lang tayo eh, no?
Tatawagan na ni Ronald, oy, may kopya ka ba dyan?
Medyo iba yan eh. Yung kahit nga deaf and mute, natutuloy yung trial eh. Kahit nga nasa hospital bed, natutuloy yung trial. Kaya argument nila na hindi na makalakad, hindi na conscious, no? Hindi na makaunawa, no? Yung cognitive functions niya ay wala na, etc. Hindi yung ICC yun. Dahil ko yan eh, yun yung court of last resort. No? At saka, mahalaga dyan, yung crimes against humanity. No? Hindi siya simpleng crime. Kaya whether ikaw ay nakaratay na, whether ikaw ay nasa bingit na, ay tutuloy pa rin yung kaso. Kaya yung mga nakakaroon ng iba, ay kung napanood nyo, dalawa nag-suicide. Dahil alam nila hindi sila makakalaya eh. Alam nila hindi sila makakatakas.
Just a time check right now, it's 5:33. Again, this is the special coverage of the Duterte decision on his appeal for interim release. We are live on all our social media platforms, One News, One PH, News 5, and True FM. And we are expecting the live stream to start any minute now.
Nasa kaliwa po na yung TV set, left side of your TV set, yan po yung live stream coming from The Hague. We're waiting for them to go online. At kami po yung nasa taas, sa kanan. At si Tito Ronald, siyempre, all the way from Gay Paris.
Nasa Europe din, pero hindi pa dumaan sa The Hague.
Oo. Ikaw talaga, ba't ka dumaan sa The Hague? Ang dami nag-abang doon eh. Baka magpa-picture sa'yo ngayon.
May forum sana ako ron eh, last Tuesday.
So, last Tuesday, not this Tuesday.
May forum dapat ako ron sa The Hague. Kaso conflict sa schedule eh.
Talagang international man of mystery.
The International Criminal Court page on Facebook is also now live. We just
I'm sure gagamitin mismo sa hearing na yan yung statements ng mga anak niya, no, na siya ay una capable na humarap sa kaso. Ikalawa,
I remember
ay
those,
kung siya ay pinalaya through an interim release clause, ay hindi na siya babalik. No? Kaya ang laking tulong ang laking tulong ng mga anak niya para siya ay hindi manalo sa interim release na yan. Kaya baka kailangan pasalamatan niya, padala niya ng thank you card.
We have a reporter there, si Ruth Cabal, and balita niya is baka may family members daw na makapag-attend sa decision today.
We don't know yet who.
Pero we don't know at this point who. Although sabi mo, may nakita kang live ni Omar Duterte.
That was last
the grandson.
week. So, may posting si Omar Duterte last week eh. In front of the ICC.
So
Si Harry Roque din, nandun. Wala naman siya sa Austria eh.
oo nga
Nasa Netherlands pa siya.
Oo nga, nakausap namin siya 2 days ago and he said he's back in the Netherlands. In fact, di ba he had a Thanksgiving with the Filipino friends there? Because
Di ka kasama doon? Di ka na-invite?
Hindi man sila know, Reg, kung bakit ayaw niya makipagkape sa akin.
Hindi mo naman in-invite? In-invite mo ba siya?
Sabi ko, magkape kami.
Oh, tinext mo?
Hindi.
Walang reply.
Wala eh.
Pero, Ron, medyo nahihirapan na siya ngayon.
Kahapon nga, tinanong ako ni Attorney Francis tungkol sa kanya.
Oh.
Sinagot ko naman. No.
Ano yung kwento?
Kung ano yung ina-applyan ni Roque sa Pinoy government dati. Bakit siya nagalit? Kaya.
Ito ba yung because he allegedly was turned down for a position? Ito ba yun?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Totoo yun? That's true?
Yes.
What was the position?
Ang sabi ko lang naman sa kanya, bakit kung ako yung presidente, bakit ako kukuha ng bato na ipupukpok sa ulo ko?
So, and then you wonder bakit hindi siya nagre-reply sa invitations mo.
Kanya nga, ako naman nagiging makatotohanan lang naman. Kung ikaw, Reg, kung ikaw ay presidente, i-appoint mo ba si Harry Roque as Solicitor General?
So then, yun hinihintay ko eh.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah, but you don't let your enemies represent you in
Oh, no.
court. Iba yun. So Solgen, is that what you're saying? Solgen ang kanyang ini-aim for?
So, Solgen yun,
Grabing
position,
tao.
Ronald? Parang.
So, in place of Pilo Hilbay.
Hindi, natanggal si Solicitor General Cadiz. No? Tapos nung bakante, ay tumawag siya. Sabi niya kung pwede daw siya mag-apply. Ayun. Kaya sabi ko, kung ako yung presidente, na hindi naman ako, ba't ako kukuha ng bato, ipupukpok sa ulo ko? Ikaw, Ed, kung presidente ka, i-appoint mo ba si Harry Roque?
Well, kung magaling siya magluto ng...
Tumba?
Hindi ko na nga tinuloy.
3 times na minention ni Ed today. Parang gutom na.
Parang masarap yung may pinya eh. Malambot-lambot.
Ikaw talaga. But in any case, ito na nga, I don't know why the ICC is so delayed because we were told
Baka nga 30 minutes delayed nga.
baka 30 minutes talaga yung delay.
Tsaka meron pa sila, Reg, very careful sila. Very careful sila
We
na
know
hindi
that.
magmukhang nilabag nila yung due process.
We know that.
No? Very
oo.
sensitive sila. No. Kaya kung merong request, halimbawa yung si Kaufman, usually pinagbibigyan nila. No.
Bok, nga pala, the other thing is this, we were talking to Gilbert Andes, I understand, nabuto ng mga kanina eh. Kung sakali pala na magdesisyon yung pag nagdesisyon na yung appeals chamber, merong 4 months na nataning yung pretrial chamber to review the decision.
Yes.
Yun lang, kung ano man ang desisyon ng appeals chamber, that will stand in the meantime na
Yes.
under review. So kung sakaling i-grant yung interim release, di laya muna siya.
Hindi siya lalaya.
Well, maybe laya is the wrong word. Release
No,
under conditions?
released with provisionally, diba? With conditions. But again, and funny enough, the talk around a third country hosting him has died down. Diba? There was a time, I think that was back in September when we heard na potentially Australia, potentially, was it Brazil or Belgium?
Would you know what the third country was? Did you ever hear?
Ukraine.
No nga. Yung Ukraine.
Hindi pwede Ukraine because President Marcos just spoke to Volodymyr Zelensky today by phone, and in fact, they reaffirmed Ukraine-Philippines ties and talked about areas for cooperation. So, paano magiging Ukraine yun?
Malay mo nga, yun ang area of cooperation.
Maganda sa Ukraine, sa Donbas.
Sa Donbas.
Papadala siya sa
Talagang
Donbas.
pa eh.
Pero mahilig si Digong sa gera. Mahilig si Digong sa gera. Kaya doon siya ipapadala kung gusto niya. Kung gusto lang naman niya.
Nako.
Tapos, di ba, I won't say it na nga. Sige.
Okay, what else do we know? So, sabi ni Attorney Gilbert Andres, there are 3 matters still pending. So number 1, ito na nga yung interim release, which will be decided today. Number 2 is the determination of Duterte's fitness to stand trial. There are 2 key dates there, December 5 and December 12. December 5 is the deadline for the panel to make recommendations. December 12 is the deadline for both parties to give their responses. And the third matter that is still pending is the appeal of the jurisdictional, the ICC's jurisdiction. Remember, the defendants also challenged the jurisdiction of the ICC over the Rodrigo Duterte case. So they're appealing. Yung appeal for that also needs to be decided on. And then from there, I guess they will decide on the schedule for the confirmation of charges.
Scheduling pala yun.
Scheduling pa lang yun.
So as it is, we're delayed by at the very least
Several
4 months.
Oo.
Pero kahit delayed, Reg, tsaka Ed, kahit 500 piso lang yung Noche Buena ng mga Pilipino, no, ay
May pasok pa niya
meron naman silang pamaskong handog. Lalo na yung mga EJK, yung mga families ng mga EJK victims.
Naku,
Meron
Ronald,
silang magandang pamasko.
you missed
Kahit 500 piso lang yung kanilang Noche Buena.
Oo nga, you missed that whole conversation. Sige na, ilabas mo na yung yung galit mo. I know you're very angry about it.
Parang hindi na isama doon sa breakdown ng DTI yung pangsahog, yung hinahalo na bawang, sibuyas, no?
Wala na rin
itlog,
drinks.
etc.
Wala
Dami
rin
hindi
drinks.
nakasama no? Talagang binreakdown Sana ang ginawa niya nga, secretary ng DTI, nag-apologize na lang, tapos nag-move on. Kaso, nag-double down pa
Oo.
It's a bad PR strategy, no?
But,
Kaya sila makukuha ng simpatsya dyan sa mga tao.
Ronald,
Hindi ko alam kung sino advisor.
it's not exactly a new thing. We have these kinds of numbers coming out from government agencies, whether it's DOH, FNRI, or DTI, na
Pero hindi
you
naman
can
to-
live on this much per meal or per
Hindi naman
day.
to poverty indicator.
It's marks of insensitivity. Kahit saan mo tignan. Kahit mag-interview kayo ng mga man on the streets, no? Medyo negative yung dating niya.
And I was telling Ed,
Yung backdrop po is yung flood control.
you have a point na every year naman tinatanong ng reporters yung mga trade officials or yung DepDev or NEDA about this issue, yung Noche Buena prices, right? So you're right na dapat by now they should have a proper response to it.
Kay Manny Mugato nga, hindi ka kasya.
Iba naman si Manny Mugato. Ikaw naman. Si Manny Mugato. Ang point of reference mo naman si Mugs.
Times 10 kailangan
Paano
natin dyan.
Unli yun
Tatlong special na siopaw at isang mami. Special mami. O, yun. Yun ang Noche Buena ni Manny Mugato. Tatlong special siopaw at isang special mami.
Yeah. Pero yun nga, like you said, against the backdrop of this massive corruption scandal. Diba? On the one hand,
Yes. Napaka-insensitive.
So about more than a trillion pesos in
lost to corruption.
and half a trillion pesos lost in the casinos in just 1 or 2 nights.
Sino ba nag-i-strategize dyan ng kanilang media?
Hindi ko alam eh. To be honest,
hindi naman galing sa TV5, no?
hindi ko alam. But honestly, I agree na sana I don't know, maybe she could have apologized to assuage some of the people's anger, right? Kasi nga, I mean, look, in one newscast, we're carrying stories of yung piles of cash na sinoli ni Henry
Sa lamesa,
Alcantara.
110 million.
Hindi pa natin alam how much of that, how much more he has, right? How much more he...
Kung barel lang ba yun o yun na yung bulk ng kanyang maaaring ibalik?
Mukhang hindi bulk because as you said, sa casino pa lang, di ba?
Baka nga nagasos sa kasi iba.
Hindi, allegedly,
Yung Chris
baka
Kringle
London
lang
ba
dyan sa TV5, Kulang pa yung 500. Magkano ba Chris Kringle nyo dyan, Reg, Ed?
Nagkikris Kringle ba tayo? May Kris Kringle ba tayo?
Hindi ko alam, di kami invited.
grabe yung response niyo.
Hindi nga tayo invited.
Oh, sige, let's move on. Let's move on from the Kris Kringle. Pero Ronald, let me go back to what I was saying kanina. I mean, this is not the first time something like this has happened. Over the years, over the administrations, once in a while, you will have an agency saying na Filipinos can live or can eat nutritiously at this much per meal.
Kwento mo yung 8 pesos mo. 8-8.
Hindi ko matanda kung nung year, 2006 ba, 2007 eh. Parang may sinabi ang gobyerno noon, nung panahon yon, na you can get a nutritious meal for mga 8 to 10 pesos. Kaya gumawa kami ng store ng 8-8. Kasi kung i-budget mo lang ng matino ang iyong menu at mag-share lang kayo, parang ano, you cook, you market and you cook for a whole family, mas makakamura ka talaga, which is true naman. Pero the numbers are always being questioned. So that's my point. You will always have something like this coming up by some bureaucrat who fiddles with the numbers. What's the...
Ang pang kasi, Ed, ang government kasi hindi immune sa stupidity.
Talaga lang yung sabihin. Well, okay. But
What does that mean?
What I mean to ask is, why does this happen?
Palampasin mo na lang. No?
But,
Ako na lang ang hindi magpapalampas. Ikaw, palampasin mo na lang.
pero my question is, why does this happen repetitively?
Stupidity pwedeng repetitive eh.
Huh?
Stupidity can be repetitive.
Okay.
Hindi mo napapansin.
I should stop asking the question kasi he keeps repeating the number.
Why does it keep happening? Why are we not more...
We're not changing the
standards.
the way either we're not changing the numbers or we're not changing how we present the numbers. I mean, maybe there's a better way of saying na if you cut down significantly, this is the lowest you can go for a happy meal for Noche Buena. It's also the way you package it.
I mean, di ba yun din yung point ni Ronald, which is every year nga, tinatanong ito sa mga officials. So surely by now, you would have figured out how to answer this question.
Every time kasi somebody comes up with a number like this, grabe ang feedback, grabe
because
but we never seem
it's
to
a gut issue.
Yeah,
diba?
but we never seem to get the
Especially
tonality
now.
right.
Especially now. Na rampant, unprecedented ang corruption, ang impunity. Tapos ngayon ko pa magsasabi ng ganyan. Mr. Ed, sama mo sa kuweba, Ed.
Bakit ako? Bakit hindi siya?
Sama mo.
Excuse
Kuweba.
me.
Tapos sarahan mo. Lagyan mo ng avalanche yung pintuan ng kuweba. No?
Kasi naman talaga eh.
Sa kuweba mo daw, Ed, di sa kuweba ko, okay? Your cave,
Lagyan mo ng
not mine.
avalanche. Ng mga bato. Hulugan mo ng mga bato.
Sa kuweba ko kulang talaga yung 500 eh. Walang pang Red Horse.
So, what can you say about Yusek Claire Castro saying, well, nasa diskarte yan, meron naman mga supermarkets that offer discounts.
Please, wag na sila mag-double down. Don't go there. No, calling on the PR of this government. Please advise them.
Well, parang the hole keeps going deeper.
I was recalling to Reg kanina yung I remember nung panahon ni Duterte, si Ernesto Pernia, ang dating NEDA chief. At that time, the poverty level was at 12,500 thereabouts for a family of 5 per month. The argument was, if you have this much, if you earn this much, you are not considered poor. And even then, si Pernia was saying, it should be double that, it should be 20-something.
Yung wala bang TF, pwedeng i-consider na poor.
Okay, let's move
Ay,
on.
hindi. Kasi kung nakakapunta pa ng Europe yung walang TF, hindi considered poor yun.
Nasa Europe, you're in Paris, tapos sabihin mo sa akin.
Kaya,
Kasalanan ko ba kung iniimbitahan ako, all expenses paid? Kasalanan ko ba yan? Kung naniniwala sila sa sasabihan ko, kumpara
Ayan
dyan,
na.
kumpara dyan,
Okay.
Okay.
We are
Ralph.
live.
We're going live.
58(1)(b) of the statute, a chamber assesses whether the arrest of a person appears necessary. 1. To prevent a person from not appearing at trial. 2. To prevent a person from obstructing or endangering the investigation or the court proceedings. Or 3. Where applicable, to prevent the person from continuing with the commission of that crime or a related crime which is within the jurisdiction of the court and which arises out of the same circumstances. In accordance with Article 60.2 of the statute, the person subjected to a warrant of arrest under Article 58 of the statute may apply for interim release pending trial. The Pretorial Chamber's ruling on such an application under Article 60.2 of the statute is provisional in nature, to the extent that it will be periodically reviewed at least every 120 days or at any time following a request by the detained person or the prosecutor, if satisfied that the circumstance so require. The Pretorial Chamber may modify its initial ruling on detention, pursuant Article 60.3 of the statute and Rule 118.2 of the Rules of Procedure and Evidence. Regarding the first ground of appeal and the question of whether the Pretorial Chamber erred in law by relying on hypothetical and non-specific risks to find that continued detention is warranted, the Appeals Chamber recalls that in determining whether the conditions pursuant Article 60.2 of the statute have been met, a chamber must find that detention appears necessary. In this context, the Appeals Chamber observes that a determination shall be made concerning the possibility and not the inevitability that one of the events listed in Article 58(1)(b) of the statute will occur, and that it is the responsibility of the relevant chamber to weigh the evidence before it pursuant to the relevant standard. The Appeals Chamber notes that in its assessment of risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute, the Pretorial Chamber relied on this legal standard. Indeed, the Pretorial Chamber correctly referred to the standard that the assessment under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute concerns the possibility, not the inevitability, of a future occurrence. It then analyzed the material before it against this standard. Accordingly, the defense has failed to demonstrate that the Pretorial Chamber misapprehended the legal standard relevant to the assessment of risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute. With regard to the Pretorial Chamber's assessment and weighing of evidence in assessing risks pursuant Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 2 of the statute, the Appeals Chamber notes that the Pretorial Chamber made reference to 5 documents, including media articles, publications of non-governmental organizations, and a book which, in its view, indicated that Mr. Duterte's inclination to interfere with investigation against him. In relation to the first document, a media article, the Appeals Chamber finds that it was not unreasonable for the Pretorial Chamber to rely on this document for its finding. Whilst this document does not mention Mr. Duterte himself as being directly involved in briefing individuals, it does not refer to statements of close. It does refer to statements of close associates, including one where individuals would have been told to remain loyal. In any event, the appeals chamber observes that Mr. Duterte's alleged involvement in briefing individuals is but one of the factors that the pretrial chamber took into account to support its conclusions on Mr. Duterte's inclination to interfere with investigations against him. In relation to the other four documents, a book, two publications of non-governmental organizations, and a press article, the appeals chamber recalls that there does not exist in the applicable law of this court any impediment to use of newspapers, articles, or other public or open sources for the purposes of assessing the requirement under Article 58(1) of the statute. Nor is there any requirement that such material be corroborated. Noting this, the appeals chamber considers that it is possible to discern how the pretrial chamber reached its conclusion on Mr. Duterte's alleged involvement in the threatening and taking of retaliatory actions against individuals opposed to him. In any event, the appeals chamber observes that this is only one of the factors that the pretrial chamber took into account to support its conclusion on Mr. Duterte's inclination to interfere with investigations against him, and more generally on the risk of Mr. Duterte obstructing or endangering the investigations or the court proceedings. For these reasons, the appeals chamber considers that the defense has failed to demonstrate an error in the pretrial chamber's assessment and weighing of evidence before it in the context of its consideration of the risk under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 2 of the statute. In relation to the pretrial chamber's reliance on the notion of a network of supporters, the appeals chamber recalls that it has considered that it is sufficient for a chamber to establish that it is possible that a suspect had the necessary assets to abscond, and that there is a risk that a suspect has the financial means to abscond on the basis of concrete evidence. The appeals chamber has also held that the existence of a supportive network and financial means may be relevant to determining whether there is a risk that a person may evade justice or interfere with the investigation, and that access to the international contacts could provide the means to enable a suspect to abscond, whether or not there was evidence that the suspect would actually utilize such contacts. In the impugned decision, in determining whether Mr. Duterte posed a flight risk under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 1 of the statute, the pretrial chamber considered that he appears to have the necessary political contacts as well as to benefit from a network of support within the Philippines. The appeals chamber considers that contrary to the defense's argument, the pretrial chamber specifically outlined why it found that there existed a network of supporters in relation to Mr. Duterte, and for which reason this supported its conclusion that the risk under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 1 of the statute was established. In the view of the appeals chamber, the manner in which the pretrial chamber undertook this assessment was case-specific, as it took into account the specific circumstances of Mr. Duterte, amongst others, his position as former president of the Philippines and his recent re-election as mayor of Davao City in May 2025. It follows that the defense has failed to demonstrate that the pretrial chamber committed an error in assessing and considering Mr. Duterte's network of supporters for the purpose of its examination of the risk under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 1 of the statute. Further, under the first ground of appeal, the defense argues that the pretrial chamber's alleged reliance on irrelevant considerations led to errors of law and fact. Regarding the arguments on the assessment of evidence and, in particular, the defense's contention that a number of factors relied on by the pretrial chamber were irrelevant, the appeals chamber notes that when assessing the risk under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 1 of the statute, the pretrial chamber relied on several factors in support of its finding that such risk existed. It relied on a statement by Mr. Duterte, statements by others, Mr. Duterte's position as a former president of the Philippines and his recent re-election as mayor of Davao City, as well as the matter of the gravity of the alleged crimes and concomitant sentence in case of conviction. The appeals chamber observes that the defense does not explain why, in its view, these factors were irrelevant to the pretrial chamber's assessment. Without more, the defense has failed to substantiate that the pretrial chamber's reasoning and assessment were unreasonable. In the same vein, the defense fails to demonstrate that the pretrial chamber's reliance on Mr. Duterte's re-election as mayor of Davao City in its assessment of the risks under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 3 of the statute was unreasonable. Moreover, with regard to the defense's contention that the pretrial chamber selectively cited facts and ignored others in the same items of evidence, the appeals chamber considers that the defense has failed to demonstrate how the fact that the pretrial chamber accorded weight to the statement from Mr. Duterte that it cited should result in the pretrial chamber's ignoring or attaching no weight to other statements. Regarding gravity and concomitant sentences in case of conviction, it is recalled that the appeals chamber has consistently held that these factors are relevant considerations in assessing the risk under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 1 of the statute, as these are factors that may increase an incentive of a person to abscond. In the present instance, the gravity of the alleged crimes and the possibility of a lengthy sentence was but one of the factors the pretrial chamber took into account in its assessment of risks under Article 58(1)(b), subparagraph 1 and 2 of the statute. And it looked at the specific allegations against Mr. Duterte. It follows that the defense has failed to demonstrate an error. Regarding the question of whether the pretrial chamber erred in fact by failing to give appropriate weight to relevant facts, specifically Mr. Duterte's health condition and its mitigating effect on the risk factors set out in Article 58(1)(b) of the statute, as argued by the defense. The appeals chamber recalls that there is no provision in the court's legal texts that specifically provides for the interim or conditional release of a detained person on health grounds. Nevertheless, the appeals chamber has indicated that the medical condition of a detained person may have an effect on the risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute, and may be a reason for a pretrial chamber to grant interim release with conditions. The appeals chamber considers that such a determination is necessarily case-specific. Contrary to the defense's assertion, nowhere did the pretrial chamber suggest that it was precluded from assessing the information about Mr. Duterte's health within the context of its assessment under Article 60.2 of the statute. Rather, it noted the reports placed before it and considered that they were unable to affect its finding on risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute. The defense has failed to show that the pretrial chamber's approach was unreasonable. For these reasons, having rejected the defense's argument under this ground of appeal, the first ground of appeal is rejected. Second ground of appeal. I will now turn to the second ground of appeal. Under this ground, the defense challenges the pretrial chamber's assessment of the proposed conditions of release and state warranties. The defense argues that the pretrial chamber erred in law in failing to address the proposed conditions of release and state warranties. The appeals chamber is of the view that the pretrial chamber did not appear to criticize a lack of detail in the proposed conditions, but rather in the details as how the state which accepted to receive Mr. Duterte would implement the necessary conditions. The pretrial chamber did not consider release with conditions as required, but found that in the circumstances before it, the risks it had identified could not be mitigated by the proposed conditions. Moreover, the appeals chamber is of the view that the pretrial chamber was not obliged, as suggested by the defense, to seek further observations from the concerned state, because it did not envisage the possibility of release given the risks it found Mr. Duterte presents under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute. For these reasons, the appeals chamber finds that the defense has failed to identify an error by the pretrial chamber when addressing the proposed conditions of release and state warranties. In relation to the question of whether the pretrial chamber erred in law by failing to consider if the proposed state warranties could mitigate the risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute, the appeals chamber finds that this does not appear from the impugned decision that the pretrial chamber would have required an elimination of risks, as argued by the defense. Instead, the impugned decision specifically states that the pretrial chamber did not consider the suggested conditions to sufficiently mitigate the identified risks. It is also apparent from the factors brought forward by the pretrial chamber when examining the implementation of conditions that it did consider them. Finally, the appeals chamber considers irrelevant to which conditions the prosecutor agreed when discussing potential release of the suspect to the host state. What matters are not conditions that may, in principle, be possible in case of a release to a state different to the one proposed by the defense. Rather, what is of consequence for the pretrial chamber's assessment are the conditions and warranties proffered in relation to a release to the state party concerned. For these reasons, the appeals chamber is of the view that the defense failed to substantiate the pretrial chamber's conclusions were unreasonable. Regarding the defense's contention that the pretrial chamber erred in fact and law by taking into account irrelevant considerations in respect to the state warranties, the appeals chamber considers that the pretrial chamber's finding mainly related to the implementation and enforcement of the proposed conditions. It considered the practical implications of ensuring adherence to the proposed proffered conditions in a situation such as the one at hand. It did so against the backdrop of having found that all three risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute were established. As such, it was reasonable for the pretrial chamber to examine how, in practice, the suggested conditions would be implemented. The defense has failed to show an error in this assessment. For these reasons, the appeals chamber considers that the defense has failed to show how the pretrial chamber erred in its assessment of the proposed conditions of release and state warranties. For the foregoing reasons, the second ground of appeal is rejected. Third ground of appeal. Regarding the third ground of appeal, within which the defense argues that the pretrial chamber erred in not considering humanitarian grounds either as independent consideration or mitigating factor in assessing interim release, the appeals chamber considers that the pretrial chamber did not refuse to address the question of interim release on humanitarian grounds. Rather, it gave the reasons for which, in its view, the humanitarian grounds advanced by the defense were not sufficiently set out in the case at hand. Further, the appeals chamber recalls that the medical condition of a detained person may be a reason for a chamber to grant interim release with conditions, and that the chamber enjoys discretion when deciding on conditional release. The appeals chamber considers that it is not apparent from the pretrial chamber's assessment that it was unreasonable. The pretrial chamber found the existence of risks under Article 58(1)(b) of the statute, which were not mitigated by Mr. Duterte's purported condition, and also could not be mitigated by any condition imposed upon release. The pretrial chamber then proceeded to analyze whether humanitarian grounds, as argued by the defense, could justify release on conditions. The appeals chamber thus considers that the pretrial chamber assessed the relevant information before it in light of the arguments made by the defense and reached its conclusion on this basis. It follows that the defense has failed to demonstrate that the pretrial chamber's assessment was unreasonable. Accordingly, the appeals chamber finds that the defense has failed to show that the pretrial chamber erred in its assessment. For these reasons, the third ground of appeal is rejected. Finally, the appeals chamber notes that the pretrial chamber reached its conclusions in relation to the risks enumerated in Article 58(1)(b) of the statute on the basis of a comprehensive assessment of the information before it. In the present case, having rejected the three grounds of appeal presented by the defense in the appeal brief, the appeals chambers unanimously confirms the impugned decision. This brings us to the end of the summary of the appeals chamber's judgment. The judgment will be notified to the parties and participants after the hearing. Translations of the summary will also be available in due course. I would like to thank the court reporters, interpreters, and other registry staff for their valuable assistance today in holding this hearing. The hearing is adjourned.
All rise. We will.
Okay, so yun po, rejected po yung appeal ng defense ni Duterte for his interim release. So that basically means he stays in detention at least for the next 120 days while I suppose kasi you can pursue the defense will try to ask for a review from the pretrial chamber. I mean,
At the first instance, which is 120 days from now.
Every 120 days.
So the key takeaways here are the appeal was rejected on all three grounds, and the judges unanimously confirmed the decision. So
Unanimous.
the panel of judges, the appeals chamber here, again, there are 5, hindi ito yung pre-trial chamber. The judges were unanimous in their decision that there has been no error in fact in terms of the pre-trial chamber's decision to deny Rodrigo Duterte's interim request.
And no error in law.
No error in fact and no error in law. The grounds, I will pull up the official grounds here. The grounds number 1 has something to do with the hypothetical and non-specific risks that to find that Mr. Duterte's continued detention is warranted. So it has to do with the retaliatory risks, other risks that in case he is released. Ground 2 is the defense argued that the pretrial chamber did not consider certain conditions that could mitigate the case, the proposed conditions of release under state guidelines. And number 3 is the humanitarian grounds. Ground 3, the defense argued that the pretrial chamber erred in refusing to take account humanitarian considerations in assessing the right to interim release of Duterte. Again, the appeals chamber rejected all of these appeals, these arguments by the defense.
Mr. Lamas, what do you think?
Yung salita yatang the defense failed, parang inulit siya mga 200 times. No? Tapos yung salitang abscond, inulit mga 500 times. No? Tapos yung gravity, inulit 100 times. Yung unanimous, once lang. Pero yung mga salitang yan ay indicative kung ano magiging nature ng susunod na trial. Yung trial proper. Kaya katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, medyo expected yan. Yung precedents, yung merits of the case, yung mga extenuating circumstances, yun yung mahalaga eh. Yung network ng akusado,
Yeah, they made mention of that several times.
Yung kanyang assets, hindi pa nga in-specify, yung kanyang anak na vice president na tinetreaten patayin yung presidente at saka yung kanyang pamilya, yung kanya mga followers na tinethreaten pabagsakin yung gobyerno. Hindi pa nga in-specify na gano'n. Bakit bibigyan ng interim release? Ibig sabihin, hindi mo naman kinakailangan ng maraming common sense kahit hindi mo kabisado yung batas ng ICC para maunawaan na ide-deny yung kanyang interim release. Kahit yung mga nagiinuman sa kanto ngayon, tingin ko na unawaan nila na iyan ay mangyayari. No? Kaya dagdagan na lang yung pulutan.
There was a line that was Judge Luz Carmen del
Ibanez
Carranza pala, the presiding judge. Judge Luz del Carmen Ibanez Carranza. She's a Peruvian jurist and judge. She is a presiding officer of the appeals chamber, and she said at the start that the defense has failed to demonstrate that the pre-trial chamber misapprehended the assessment. So exactly as we were saying earlier, what was your word that you used? Misread?
Misappreciated.
Misappreciated, that's it. You were close. Misapprehended. So the appeals chamber said defense failed to establish that the pre-trial chamber has misapprehended the facts of the case.
And they also gave emphasis to...
Mahalaga yung nagbasa ng desisyon eh. Peruvian siya. Yan ang laging sinasabi nila Bato, nila Robin Hood Padilla, nila Jingo Estrada, ng mga followers ni Digong. Imperialist ang ICC, imperialist yung judges. Pakipaliwanag kung nasaan yung Peru. No? Pakipaliwanag na lang. At pakipaliwanag, Reg, anong ibig sabihin ng abscond? Parang ang hirap maunawaan ng iba dyan eh. Yung ibig sabihin ng abscond. No?
Well, we will look up. Abscond means to
flee.
To leave.
To flee.
Exactly. To abscond, to flee, to run away, to, I guess evade the arrest or detention.
But let me also just point out several times, at least twice kasi binanggit ng appellate court na magkaiba yung possibility versus inevitability of future occurrence of, for example, possible retaliation. And that they're not exactly looking for the inevitability. Just the possibility is enough to make an assessment already on their part.
Inevitable lang kasi yung parusa sa impyerno. Yun lang ang inevitable. Yung iba naman hindi.
Okay. Also, the defense failed to demonstrate error in the assessment of weighing the evidence in the context of the risks involved. Also, they also made mention of the use of news reports and open source information. I suppose they were referring to yung mga stories coming from the Philippines about the threats or the supposed threats and what appeared to be statements that left a lot to the imagination as far as fear is concerned.
We have
pwede raw gamitin.
Pala to the imagination.
ito na yung first reaction from Malacanang. This is coming from PCO USEC Claire Castro. She says the International Criminal Court has already made its decision and the palace respects it. That is all. I mean, that is all is my words, but that's all the statement.
Pero nga,
nakangiti ba si Claire Castro nung sinasabi niya yun? O nakasimangot?
So,
don't know.
Ronald, ang laki ng ngiti mo ngayon.
Ako? Sobrang ako surprised.
Okay. Surprised daw siya. Hindi ka panipaniwala talaga.
Again, it has been another historic day, one for the books. The big news today, of course, ICC Appeals Chamber confirms the decision rejecting the request for interim release
unanimously
of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Unanimously, the 5-member Appeals Chamber rejected it, all 3 grounds. Unanimously.
But just to add, yung sinabi kanina ni Attorney Gilbert Andres, merong cycle na every 120 days pwedeng ipa-review.
Not necessarily overturned, but just review.
Because
based on
things may
circumstances,
change. De novo.
Meaning circumstances at that time.
Review lang na review.
Okay. But we will leave that there. It's been
Tito Ronald,
a
umuwi ka
very
na.
big day. Thank you so much, Ronald Demas, our resident political pundit. Reactions and other details on Duterte's rejected interim release bids on the big story in just an hour at 7:30 p.m. Join us again on Monday, 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Edwin Gao. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.